Now, you all might remember the attack that happened in Reading last year, snuffing out 3 people enjoying a bit of sunshine back when we was allowed out for certain reasons. Something else you might remember that I pointed out at the time was the instant claims of mental health that followed it, despite the fact that the scumbag in question had form when it came to these sorts of attacks. In fact, he had been in prison 3 times previously for related crimes and had just been released from prison not long before, showing once again how the system in this country fails its people far too often. Much like the girls Naz Shah thinks should shut up for the sake of diversity. Now, I was always under the impression that if you committed 3 serious crimes in the UK, you got a life means life or put on an indefinite sentence under public protection, which of course would have meant his first 3 crimes should have secured that before he got the chance to kill him Reddin. Obviously, that didn't appear to happen. Now it appears though the system has realised that this low-life dirty jihadi fuckpig deserves to rot in prison for the rest of his shit-snivelling life, which if you ask me is lucky for him. I think they deserve something more, but that is just me. But anyway, Breitbart has covered this, so let's take a look at that, because not only does it talk about this case, but it also shows the failings of the justice system when it comes to serious crimes here in the UK. It headlines, UK migrant terrorist receives rare life means life sentence for 3 executions in public park. A terrorist asylum seeker is not an asylum seeker, he's an illegal immigrant who executed 3 men with a knife and wounded 3 others in a public park in Reading, England, had received a rare whole life sentence. And yeah, rare is the key word there. It is extremely rare. Killers and some sexual predators and armed robbers often received life sentences in the United Kingdom, but the name is misleading as very few are actually required to spend the rest of their lives in prison. Something that won't be surprising to any of you, I expect. Indeed, the average time spent behind bars on a life sentence for murder is just 16 years, according to Full Fact, with some murderers being released in as little as 3.6 years in recent times, meaning you can literally get longer for selling drugs or something like that over killing someone in the UK. That is just fucking lunacy, with life merely meaning life on parole for the vast majority it added. But not so for jihadi fuckpig, whose name doesn't even really matter. He is the Libyan migrant who has now been sentenced for a terrorist stabbing spree in 2020, and becomes one of just a few dozen killers in the British system to receive a so-called whole life order. Jihadi fuckpig 26 murdered James Furlong, David Wallace and Joseph Ritchie Bennett in Forbury Gardens, Reading, in the space of 30 seconds by delivering single powerful knife blows to the back of their heads, and attempted to murder another 3 men as well, leaving them with serious injuries. The dirty jihadi fuckpig is said to have screamed Allah Akbar and God accept my jihad in Arabic by witnesses, was told he was a rare and exceptional case in which just punishment requires that you be kept in prison for the rest of your life by sentencing judge Mr. Justice Sweeney, which obviously completely shits on the narrative at the time that this was all mental health issues and all this bollocks. Screaming Allah Akbar and God accept my jihad proves he's not completely insane, just partially by believing some bullshit like that, but obviously mostly just ideologically driven against the West and of course the British. It goes on, there is some anger and confusion from members of the public and victims' families with respect to the fact that the dirty fuckpig had been free to carry out his act of religious jihad in the first place, given that he was barely out of prison for previous terror offences when he carried it out, and had been in contact with a probation officer and visited by the police just 1 day prior. Indeed, the jihadi fuckpig has served 4 obviously short sentences and received 7 convictions for 19 offences before his attack, raising questions for the Home Office and perhaps the courts as to why he was still in the country at all, which let's be honest is a given even after the first one, but we know how piss poor the Home Office is, not just under Priti Patel but under countless ones before her, who have obviously failed. He's been here long enough so it's not just all on Priti Patel, she's obviously responsible for anything over the last year, so maybe she should have got him kicked out a bit quicker, though I expect lefty Labour loving lawyers probably would have got him back in. We know how easy it is for them to get him off the plane, let's be honest. It said Judge Sweeney determined that the migrant had been trained by the Ansar al-Sharia terrorist organisation in Libya and lied about his links to it when he claimed asylum in Britain, which let's be honest is what most of them are gonna be fucking doing, but the British system is such a cuckold that it lets them do it and allows these people to run around killing us. And yet people in the UK actually think the government is gonna save their lives in relation to the Rona. What a fucking joke you are. Now obviously you lot are probably a bit shocked that the UK justice system has actually done something that it should be doing. I was when I first see this, but it is good news and we should report it as so. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen often enough with these dirty terrorist scumbags, let me tell you. you. Though in all honesty, I would have been fairly happy with them booting him straight out the country at this point. But then we always run the risk that he could just walk back in or get a boat over with the Home Office paying for a hotel and all that shit before he runs round and stabs someone else. Either way, well done to the judge for actually putting this cunt where he belongs and for the rest of his life. Let's hope he can't appeal it and then eventually get out.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.